How do you approach conversations about estimation?
So what I often tell people, what I often tell business people when they're complaining to me about a missed deadline or whatnot is I say, hey, remember the last time you built a financial model and you're like, oh yeah, I'll have this done in an afternoon. And then 2 weeks later, it's done. Everybody's bad at estimating because it's extremely difficult to do. One, it's hard to do because humans can't predict the future. And two, it's especially hard to do because when you're building something new for the first time, the amount of stuff that comes up that you can't predict and that's going to get in the way, I mean, and the more complex it is, the more risk there is that those things will arise. And to your point, when you're dealing with multi-stakeholders, now you have a whole team that's working on it. I mean, the idea that you can estimate with accuracy is, I think, unless you have a track record of doing so in the exact type of environment that you're working in, is I think fundamentally false. And it's not just engineering teams and technologists who get that wrong. Business people get that wrong all the time too. And I think it's important to approach those conversations with the sense of estimating isn't just difficult for developing products and technologies. Estimating is difficult for basically doing anything. Okay, so now you establish that as like the baseline of understanding, and then you have to talk about, all right, well, let's do the best that we can, and then build an enormous amount of buffer on top of that, and then stay very, very closely aligned on it, and it really takes kind of like all three of those pieces, and I've seen this go wrong by not having all three of those pieces in lots of different ways. So if you just say, well, we don't know, so we're not even going to try to estimate, we're just going to say it's going to be 3 months, then you haven't actually done any of the thinking really at all to try to articulate, like, should it be 3 months, or maybe it's going to be 6? Like, let's do some initial scoping here. Then you obviously have to add buffer. And I've done some work in real estate and in construction, that you'll add a contingency that's maybe 10 or 20%. But, when you're talking about developing a product, like, your contingency buffer might be 2x, it might be double the time that you thought it was going to take you. And so it's critical that you're intellectually honest about that. And you know what? That might be a really hard conversation. Because the business person may say, I understand, but like, we're going to run out of money in 6 months. And so if we don't get this thing live and start to get some customers on it, like, we don't have 6 months. But the answer to that conversation isn't then, okay, well, I guess I'm just going to tell them it's going to be 3 and we'll do the best that we can. It's like, okay, or like, maybe we'll get lucky this time and like not have to use the contingency budget, because like, when does that ever happen? It's like, okay, well then let's collectively scope this way down, and let's agree on what the true minimum viable product's going to be, and really go with that. And if we find in this amazing place that we can build more than that, like, wonderful. But like, let's not take that as the base case.